God called Abram to leave his country, his relatives, and his father's house to go to an entirely new land that God would show him, the land of Canaan. In return for this journey of faith, God made a tremendous promise. He would make Abram into a great nation, bless him, make his name famous, and through him, all the families of the earth would be blessed. Abram, at 75 years old, obeyed without question, taking his wife Sarai, later Sarah, and his nephew Lot on this pilgrimage. Upon arriving in Canaan, a land already inhabited, God affirmed the promise that this land would belong to Abram's descendants. To maintain peace, Abram graciously allowed Lot to choose the most fertile land, and Lot chose the well-watered Jordan Valley near the city of Sodom. Years passed, but Sarai remained barren. Despite the lack of an heir, God later made a formal covenant with Abram, confirming that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars. When it seemed impossible for the promise to be fulfilled through Sarai, she suggested that Abram have a child with her Egyptian servant, Hagar, a common practice at the time. Hagar bore Abram a son Ishmael. However, this was not God's plan for the covenant heir. When Abram was 99, God reappeared, confirming the original promise. God changed Abram's name to Abraham, father of a multitude, and Sarai's name to Sarah, princess, and instituted circumcision as the sign of the covenant. Most remarkably, God promised that the elderly Sarah would miraculously conceive and bear the promised son within the year. Skeptical but trusting Abraham believed. The next year, the son was born and named Isaac, meaning he laughs, commemorating his parents' initial reaction of joyful disbelief. The narrative reaches its climax years later when God chose to test Abraham's faith. God commanded him to take his only son, Isaac, the very heir of the promise, and offer him as a sacrifice on a mountain in the land of Moriah. As he prepared to slay his son, an angel of the Lord called out, stopping him. God saw Abraham's complete and unconditional obedience and provided a ram caught in a thicket to be sacrificed in Isaac's place. Because Abraham had not withheld his only son, God swore a solemn oath to bless his descendants and multiply them like the stars and the sand on the seashore. Abraham lived out the rest of his long life in the land, securing a burial plot for Sarah and making arrangements for Isaac's wife, before finally passing away at the age of 175. His story is ultimately one of radical faith and obedience that set the course for the history of Israel.